swing your questions over here. All right, everyone. Well, welcome to Biz Bites with JK. I'm excited to have Chris Currie on the show today. Chris, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, John.
So Chris Currie, Peak Sales Recruitment. You've been in the recruiting business now for a number of years, but you have an extremely vast sales background as well. Coca-Cola, Worth Canada. So excited to have you. We're going to talk a lot of content today, but why don't you tell the audience a little bit about you, where you're from, kind of how you got into sales and how you got to Peak.
Yeah, absolutely. So started out the illustrious sales career actually as a merchandiser with Coca-Cola. So came out of university, graduated with a history degree, contemplating going to be a teacher. And the reality is that took a pretty cool opportunity to start with Coca-Cola as a merchandiser, and slowly sort of worked myself through the ranks there over time into an account management function, and eventually made a change over into industrial sales with Worth Canada, and that's in the sort of Ottawa and Eastern Ontario region. And over time, again at Worth, I really learned how to sell. As you can imagine, Coke was a heavily marketing and advertising and brand driven type of opportunity. It was really just an order taker. So going to Worth Canada, really learned how to sell, and eventually was promoted into a district sales management role as well, where I managed 6 great sales reps across Eastern and Northern Ontario. So that led me to my recruitment career. So in 2017, maybe late 2016, early 2017, connected with a gentleman in Ottawa who had sort of shared a little bit of insight about peak sales recruiting, and made the step over there to essentially leverage the sales and sales leadership experience that I had, but just leveraging it in a recruitment seat. So I've been with Peak for coming up on 4 years now. I am a client manager with Peak, which is a dual role of essentially being a headhunter as well as managing our great clients. And essentially what Peak is we're one of the leading sales and sales leadership recruitment firms in North America. So we do opportunities all throughout the U.S. and in Canada. And I play a critical role on our team on delivering great sales talent to our customers.
So you went from, with the Coca-Cola and the Worth, I would imagine it was more outside territorial sales. You had an existing account base, whether it be 1, 10 or 40 of them or more, and you were managing those. And then when you get into recruitment, you're more almost inside now. You don't have that constant interaction with that client. How do you feel about that change? How was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, that was the nice thing about the work that we're doing is it allows for that autonomy, that remote, remote work that I had in a outside sales function. So, very early on in my career with Peak, I was able to work remotely, a couple of days a week. That actually allowed me the collaboration of being in office, and working alongside my colleagues, but it also gave me the autonomy to be able to sort of make and set my own schedule. And in terms of the client interface, I would say for the last, 2.5 years, as being in a sales leadership seat, because I was managing people more than being client facing, my client facing was limited, maybe not limited, but it had been reduced compared to sort of every day being out and visiting clients. And as you can imagine, with the technology that's been in place, like even in 2016, pre-COVID, pre all this, I mean, we've been doing a lot of video, a lot of, interactive, consultative conversations and interactions via, platforms such as Zoom and even via phone and things of that nature. So it was a little bit of an adjustment, but because of the autonomy of the whole thing and the remote work opportunity, it was actually a pretty smooth transition.
So you're the first recruitment specialist that I've had on the show, which is kind of cool because I've tried to get sales from all kinds of different areas of expertise, if you will, outside sales from industrial to real estate, and now on the recruitment side. So we're gonna talk. We had our pre-call, and we probably should have recorded that pre-call because we had a lot of good stuff. So we're gonna try to scrape back some of that stuff that we talked about, because I think it was pretty powerful when we talked about recruiting and prospecting. And you've developed almost a systematic way of looking at it from a quality versus quantity. I think a lot of people assume prospecting is dial, 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 get 100, 200, 300 dials in a day. And that's prospecting. And whatever I get back in return is, well, there's my ratio. But you've kind of come up with a unique way to prospect that's been extremely efficient and effective for you. So why don't you talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And the model that you're referring to, that's that sort of high volume model. I actually refer that to like a spray and pray concept. So I've heard that said before. It's spray and pray. Where the reality is that over time, and I would even say as I got into recruitment, I had taken on that mentality that, hey, let's do a pile of activity, let's put in a pile of time, and it will yield the results. And naturally, just like any sales role as well, you actually become more efficient over time. And also too, through some very comprehensive training that we've taken at Peak, we've actually followed a model by a gentleman called Lou Adler, who is one of the pinnacle individuals within the sort of recruitment, training, how to hire, great
Mm-hmm.
people, uh, you know, training space. And we've really followed this small batch, high touch mentality. And as you've alluded to, John, the similarity of prospecting and recruitment really comes twofold in that small batch, high touch mentality. So what we've adopted to, and what I've adopted to as I've gotten deeper and deeper into this role, is a very, don't get me wrong, we've always had a targeted approach. We've always developed a very clear profile, working very consultatively with our clients at the outset of our search. But it was actually how I rolled out the strategy, when it was time to execute on the activities involved in a successful search, is I would create a small batch. So I would essentially target, instead of doing 100, I would target a very small concentrated amount. So I would have, essentially 24, 28, 30, 32 of the absolute best, most, uh, you know, the best salespeople on paper. And I would actually spend more time in a high touch model, meaning that I am going to, essentially create campaigns, and I'm going to use every single platform, every single means in which, to target and essentially just sell a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing is I'm selling a conversation. I'm ideally looking to, through a small batch, high touch function. Sometimes it takes 7, 8 touch points, 9 touch points, 11 touch points, but I just know that because it's targeted on the 28 best people available in the market, that, you know, if I stick to my metrics, my closing ratios will always remain the same. I'm always going to work on a, 22 to 23, maybe on a good week, a 28%, sort of closing ratio, where if I know of those 23 people, for example, naturally I'm going to connect with, 20, 24 to 27% of them.
So when you look at your touch points, what do you typically use? What platforms? How do you do? Is it a phone call first? Is it email? What's worked for you?
Yeah, that's a great call, and naturally, what I really like to do, and you see a lot of content out there, it's about, like, share your secrets, and I'm certainly somebody who's, like, loves that concept. And really, I mean, to answer the question transparently, it's everything that you could, everything that you could think of.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to create a list, I mean, the easiest one is obviously the, LinkedIn platform. But now there's ways of essentially, capturing people's emails, for example, through, maybe their company website or through other platforms. But even social media too becomes one, through
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, things of that nature. But in terms of the professional scope of it, I mean, typically it's a, call, text, email, LinkedIn connection request, LinkedIn in-mail, an email to a personal, email to a personal email. I've
Yeah.
even got creative enough sometimes where, in a very strategic search where I understand, okay, well, there's only, 8 people that are specific to what I'm looking for in this market. I will call their workplace and suggest that, hey, I've lost Jim's business card. Do you have his cell phone number?
Mm.
Naturally, just like you have to get creative. This is a hustle
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Creativity. It's that's talk about a lot of content right now out there about creativity and how to be creative in prospecting, whether it be by videos or unique selling propositions. I know there's a ton of stuff out there. So when you're looking for sales roles, I think this is an interesting question. I've actually I had a guest on the show last night, and we talked about the same thing. As a sales leader, and I think it's important because it reflects down to the recruitment side of it as well. When you're looking to hire a potential candidate, or you're looking to put a prospective candidate in front of a company that you're recruiting for, how important is experience versus other X factors that somebody may have that could be a good fit, but may not come with the tenure in that industry, or may not have those years of experience in sales at all? Like, how do you determine that? Have you had success on both ways? Which way do you look at it?
Yeah. So as a sales leader myself, I was actually apt to take more of a risk in that sense, where I could take a risk on somebody based on their potential or based on, like, I actually had one guy one time where I was calling him to tell him that he didn't get the job, and he essentially like wouldn't take no for an answer. He would not take no for an answer. He challenged me and forced me into essentially taking him on an additional ride along through the interview process, and eventually I hired him because I just said, if he has this type of you know drive,
Mm-hmm.
I have to take a chance on a guy like this. So as a sales manager, I was able to take more of a risk like that. As a sales recruiter, it's a very different mindset. Yeah. So what it is, John, is we don't have the option of taking a chance on people's potential.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm here for in the sales recruitment seat is delivering on a exact profile for my client. And those profiles are typically generated in conversations that I have with my client, but always, sales experience is required. The types of, requisitions, the types of partnerships that I have with my clients, they are looking typically for outbound, salespeople, for outside sales reps, for key account managers. It's just the job titles in that senior level individual contributor role, or that entry level sales management, or mid level sales management, or even VP sales. There we we have to deliver on the profile, and there's
Yeah.
no real way of sort of blurring those lines. Like, it's part of the service that we provide is bringing people who have a repeatable, it's the same way a business would want a repeatable, scalable model. Is we want that same thing in a sales individual, somebody who's done it before. They've built a territory. They've built a territory on year-over-year growth. They've targeted and opened new accounts. It's like, naturally you want somebody who's walk the talk
Mm-hmm.
and done it before.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why most companies would probably hire a recruiting specialist anyway, because they've probably taken a chance on somebody outside the industry and they've had an unsuccessful situation, which it's cost, right? You hire somebody that doesn't work, regardless of what you think that person is capable or not. They could have all the experience in the world, they fail. They could have no experience in the world, they fail, but it's still a cost towards that company. So a lot of companies I find
Absolutely.
avoid recruitment because, oh gosh, I don't want to invest 10,000 or 20,000, whatever it may be, in commissionable costs towards the recruitment. I find somebody myself, but they don't realize that
Yeah.
search time, that onboarding time of somebody that's not capable of doing the job just cost you 2 times, 3 times, 4 times more what a professional would have cost you to get the right fit. So yeah, I can appreciate
Absolutely.
that. I can appreciate that. So
Absolutely. I think the stat is it on average it costs 74,000, you know, 74,000 for every unsuccessful hire.
no kidding. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, so COVID has brought a lot of unique situations to companies all over industries. People are closing, people are firing, hiring. It's all over, really. So, what have you seen as a recruitment specialist in the sales, specifically in the sales industry? What has COVID done in your eyes to organizations that have outside sales teams? Do you find people are still hiring? Do you find people are letting people go? Where do you see the industry right now because of the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. So what I'm seeing, and I mean, really, it's a sample size of the clients that I'm dealing with and the individuals that I'm engaging with, throughout our day to day. But overall, I mean, I'm seeing a variance, and what I mean by that is, obviously, some organizations are seeing, record level
Hmm.
growth, and they are hiring, and they are, using, virtual platforms to, complete their interview processes and, essentially successfully acquire talented salespeople throughout this process. On the other hand, yes, we are seeing a lot more of engagement, a lot more of interaction amongst individuals who, whose departments have been cut.
Hmm.
Because we are working essentially all over North America, we are seeing the full gamut of the impact. And what I can share, and I think that there's a unique phenomenon going out there right now, is that uh, there is a little bit of a misconception with hiring managers and with companies that, oh, hey, there seems to be an influx of there must be an influx of talented people in the market. If we're seeing an increase in the unemployment rate, that would equate to, hey, let's engage a recruitment firm to bring us some of these talented individuals. But what we're actually finding when we're out there speaking to people in the market, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great salespeople that are going to get back on their feet or have already,
Hmm.
landed their next gig. But what I'm really finding is it almost becomes a little bit more of the, what was already a needle in the haystack type of opportunity. We've actually created just a little bit more volume. So it's really up to us, as a recruitment firm to, continue to vet, and really that's why the service that we provide really vets out, because yes, there's a larger amount of engagement, but the top performing talented salespeople, have been retained for the most part from what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's almost like companies have taken the opportunity to reevaluate their organizations from a talent perspective and have made decisions based on that. But to your point, because I know I've in a company that we thought the same thing. Gosh, people are losing their jobs. There's got to be an abundance of talent on the market right now, and there really isn't. There's people out there, and to your point, there are some talented people out there for sure that unfortunately have lost their job or have decided that they are not willing to stay in the company that they're at. But this has been a more of a talent management situation for COVID. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you see this as an opportunity for companies to start looking right now within their own organization, and I don't want to use the statement trim the fat, but you know, look at the talent they have and manage it a little bit differently.
Absolutely, and I would even focus more on the external efforts, because I always default back to this concept of something that we live by at Peak. It's this concept of talent matters. So
Mm-hmm.
so naturally, I look at that internally, but even externally too. I mean, the reason why we've had so many great organizations come to us and partner with us is the hiring and retaining top talent, really continues to be one of the number one challenges of every organization. So, yes, John, I would feel that this period of time is, a healthy opportunity for all organizations to evaluate, and optimize what they're doing. And certainly there is an opportunity, because oftentimes the greatest salespeople that I bring to my clients are passive candidates. So these are people that are gainfully employed. They're top performing. They're typically in the president's club. Like they barely even have time. They ignore me the first 7-8 times I connect with them because they're out there closing deals. So the reality is that there's always an opportunity to look externally for top talent and to partner with with a company like Peak Sales, because we're not going to deliver you the active people who are applying on Indeed every day. We are very much a targeted search firm.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, as you mentioned, is what a great time to at this time to evaluate the internal process, but also there always remains an external opportunity to bring in talent, because again, I default to that concept that hiring and retaining top talent is everybody's challenged with that.
Retain top talent. That is a huge thing. Actually, that could be a whole nother podcast just on that alone. But give me one quick thing that you get when you call a top talent in the market, looking to have a conversation with them and engaging them about an opportunity that you're looking for, and they say no. Say, I'm happy. Why are they happy? Like, what are you hearing? Maybe there's different reasons, but why are they not willing to have a conversation with you? What are companies doing to retain top talent out there right now?
Yeah, that's a great question, and really it comes with a twofold answer. Is like, I do my best to try and get out of a transactional interaction like that. Like at the end of the day, I don't want to have a transactional relationship with these people. I don't want to say, hey, here's what I'm working on. It pays you this much. It's here. It's blah 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 blah. It's like I typically present myself to candidates as more of a you know a career consultant, or even just a strategic advisor, something of that nature. Typically I position myself with these folks as an opportunity to network.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather position myself as an opportunity. Hey, let's expand our professional network today. And by presenting myself like that, typically we have great great conversations around what their aspirations are, what their career growth projections are, what runway is available for them at their current organization.
Mm-hmm.
And typically it's whenever I start asking open-ended questions throughout these like networking calls that are more consultative and aren't just like, hey, this is what I'm working on, what do you think, that I actually a lot of things come out. And I would think, John, to answer your question, I mean, the things that are contributing to, talent being retained, and why people like their job. I think first and foremost, it's the leadership. I do often hear, hey, I love working with my manager. Oh, my manager's great. He allows me to have the freedom to, as
Mm-hmm.
long as I'm productive, he doesn't, he gives me the freedom. So that's a big one. I would think the room for growth, the room for growth, the runway for growth. So, especially in a senior level individual contributor role. And what I mean by individual contributor is just a, bag carrying salesperson, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
as opposed to leading a team. So essentially those people typically want a runway for growth, and that could be, a progression, or it could be, an opportunity to become an SME. I'm seeing a lot of this like subject matter expert
Mm-hmm.
opportunities present themselves within an organization, but or an opportunity into leadership.
Yeah.
So I would say the two are, leadership that exists within the organization, runway for growth within their current organization, and then the final one. I mean, every single human being, at some point we got to talk brass tacks, and it does come down to compensation and the financial opportunity, the financial gain for these individuals.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would imagine at some point in that leadership type of conversation would be culture as well, that they're or a part of a good healthy culture or family, which would be hard for them to detach from too. But
Absolutely.
it's super
And typically the top performers are enhancing a company. They're contributing it. They're probably a
right.
key member of that cultural fabric.
Yeah.
So it's like, like you said, they're almost woven into the cultural fabric of these companies. So for
Yeah.
sure, culture is a huge one.
Yeah. So I always ask this question at the end of every podcast, and I'm interested. You're a young guy, so I'm gonna go back a few more years other than 20, because you're probably not too much older than that. But knowing everything you know now, Chris. Okay, you're in the recruitment specialist hot seat here. You're a manager. You're a leader. COVID has happened. It's happening. What advice would you give yourself as a 18-year-old young kid starting in the sales world, knowing everything you know now?
Yeah, I would take it almost in more general terms, and I would probably tell myself, don't take life so seriously. I think at that time, there's a lot of these like measuring conversations that you're having. You're speaking to people, and what are you going to do? What are you taking on? Where are you going to school? Things of these nature. I really felt like at that time, I would strongly encourage myself, don't take life too seriously, because as you get older, the level of responsibility that comes to you is drastically more increased than what you have at that time. It's actually more of I would tell myself to enjoy those years. It's really,
Mhm.
as you reflect back to that, adolescence period, pre-kids, pre-everything, like I would strongly encourage myself, hey, just don't take life too seriously. Enjoy this period. There is a pile of responsibility that is coming to you, and enjoy this time.
Awesome, man. Chris, appreciate you being here, buddy. I really do. And it was
Yeah,
cool
man.
having somebody from the recruitment world. And I really do thank you for your time. And I wish you the best of luck in the future. So thanks for joining me today. And let's stay in touch for sure, man.
Sounds like a plan, John. Thank you, man. Take care.